I want to cut across back to Abhishek Bhalla, our defense correspondent who's still with us. Abhishek, what more can you add?
Well, Preeti, this incident has taken place on the 9th of December, and what we've learnt is that there was a build-up in the area over the last few weeks, which finally resulted in a face-off and then in an ugly clash. This is an area which has been sensitive over the last few years. In fact, last year in October, there was a similar incident where there were no clashes, but the Chinese and Indian troops came face to face, and a few troops were even detained by the Indian side, and they were later allowed to go back. Something similar has happened this time. We've been told that there are injuries on both sides. What the nature of injuries exactly are is yet to be, told to us. But this particular incident once again reaffirms the fact that it's not just Ladakh where things have been volatile, right, but all across the LAC, across all sectors, be it the western sector of Ladakh, the eastern sector that consists of Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim, and in fact, right, even the middle sector of Uttarakhand and Himachal. All these areas have seen a heightened state of alertness over the last 2.5 years. There has been a huge enhancement as far as deployments are concerned in these areas of the Indian forces. There is more synergy between the Indian Army and the ITBP, which is the border guarding force. And in fact, India is ramping up its surveillance capabilities and pushing in several other platforms in these military platforms in these areas to make sure they are ready for any kind of challenge against any Chinese aggression.
You do stay on with me. What I am going to do is I'm going to bring in my colleague Shiv Arur into this conversation as well. Shiv, extremely worrying, if you look at it in context, this is the first incident reported post what went down in 2020 in the Galwan Valley.
That's correct, Preeti. This is in fact the Tawang sector, which is here, which is, this entire bit is Arunachal Pradesh. You've got the Bhutan border here, and that's Tibet over there. Now, the Yangtze border, between India and Tibet is where this clash reportedly took place. The information that's coming out from the army at this time says some minor injuries of a few soldiers on both sides, but we are given to understand that it's a little bigger than that. There appear to have been more than 200-300 troops on the Chinese side, perhaps an equal number on the Indian side, and there have been some injuries. Some of them apparently pretty serious. There are some fractures, etc. At least 2 people we've spoken to have said no casualties of any kind, but there were more casualties on the Chinese side because the Indian side were actually, they'd taken the initiative to defend against what was turning out to be a very aggressive Chinese patrol. It was in October 2021, Preeti, just over a year ago, where a similar kind of confrontation had taken place between Indian and Chinese troops. But in that case, some Chinese troops had been, had been kept behind, as a result of them defying certain patrolling, protocols in that area. And remember, all of this is happening in the shadow of what's happening in eastern Ladakh since 2020. Violence that has taken place between Indian and Chinese troops in Sikkim, which is not very far from here as well. But in Tawang, especially the Tawang sector border, Preeti, there have been confrontations in the past. It continues to be a pretty restive frontier between both sides. We're still getting details about the scale of this particular confrontation, though.
Especially the area, Shiv, that you're pointing out, could it also be a spin-off of possibly China being rather angry with Bhutan aligning with India, especially when it comes to border strategic control?
That has always been one of the factors, Preeti. In fact, if you look at patrolling in Sikkim, if you look at patrolling in the Tawang sector, all of these things have played a factor. But let's remember that whether it is Tawang, whether it is Eastern Ladakh, whether it is the central sector, whether it is Sikkim, the border protocol between India and China has largely, held pretty firm. What happened in Galwan was a complete breakdown of that particular protocol, where the Chinese actually used weapons, lethal weapons, weapons in that brawl. In this particular confrontation, I am told that there were no weapons of any kind used. It was a hand-to-hand brawl of the kind that we've seen in different places, including in Pangong, including in Sikkim, and earlier also in the Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh. So no reason to believe that there was any violation of the existing norms in terms of the use of weapons. But remember, when two patrolling parties cross each other, there is a set down norm list of norms, Preeti, for disengagement. They talk. They don't, no hostile maneuvers are mounted. There is no aggressive show of force of any kind. Nobody's supposed to raise their voice. Nobody's supposed to make any threatening gestures of any kind. But in this particular case, as has happened in the past, all it takes is a slight trigger, a little bit of pushing, a little bit of dhakka mukki, someone throws a punch and things just escalate from there. And when you've got a lot of people concentrated in one small area, injuries, the fists can fly, legs can fly, people can get injured pretty badly because these are military personnel stationed in one of the most hostile battlefields of the world. So like I said, once again, in Pangong, you had about 100 troops on both sides. In Galwan, you had about 400, troops on the Indian side, many more troops on the Chinese side. In this particular case as well, I'm told over 100 troops on both sides. So the precise scale of those injuries is not known just yet, but this seems to have been
快手，拥抱每一种生活。